Hello and welcome to the TDF exclusive. I'm Kavita Wei. In this edition of TDF, it's not a one-on-one, but rather a panel of two, of which we have the pleasure of having our guests joining us. ZHANG Yuan, who's a professor at the Shanghai International Studies University. Welcome. Also joining us is Sunjoy Joshi, chairman at the Observer Research Foundation. Warm welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Well, the title given to me for this panel is Trade Wars, Chip Wars, How U.S.-China Rivalry is Reshaping the World. Now, I'd like to start out with you. Given this context of how it says U.S.-China rivalry, I'd like to ask you if China looks at it that way. Because when it says reshaping the world, I think one of the problems that exists is the point of view where the U.S. may actually want to do that, but China's actions, the consequence of it reshapes the world.
Thank you for your comment and your question. I think to speak from Chinese Academy perspective, I think first of all, China do not think we are in somehow status of war with the US. And we understand and we recognize that the bilateral relationship between China and the US is very important. And the two big powers, they shared a lot of common and mutual interests with each other. So that is the first point. And the second point is the use of high technology, for example, like the chip. They are not used to as a tool of war, but they are somehow a technology, a tool to help people to live in a better life. So no isolated country can complete that dream by themselves. High technology needs cooperation between countries, especially between big power with high technology support, with high technology strategy that they can prolong their job. And I think the third way is we living in a community with shared future for mankind. So do whatever things we should think that's first. Just like your president said in the opening ceremony, we are living in a house, we are living in one home, we are each other's neighbor, we are each other's friends. That's my...
Very well, you remembered what he said there. That's pretty impressive. Thank you for that. We do appreciate it. I'm sure Dr. Pezeshkian appreciates that also. So Sunjoy Joshi, when you hear the statements coming there from our guest, she mentioned about the chips.
Yeah.
The thing about the chips is a very, not only touchy and sensitive issue, but the U.S. Has gone ahead. And I don't want to make this a U.S.-China kind of boxing match, so to speak, between the two, because it's not all about that. But the chip is a sensitive one because the U.S. has tried to restrict not only the chip and what it offers, and one particular arena which I found interesting was the defense industry, but also overall, it seems like the U.S., and usually they wouldn't say this perhaps decades ago, but now openly they're saying we want to prevent China from excelling when it comes to, for example, the area of AI. Why do you think the U.S. is even worried about that? Why doesn't it try to catch up and even cooperate with China when it comes to areas where China is actually more advanced than the U.S. itself?
There are two aspects to this. One, there's an economic aspect. The other is strategic aspect. The economic aspect is very different. The economic aspect really says today the world, it's not just a US-China competition. The fact is that global supply chains today are complex, they're interlinked, and they're not two countries involved, there are multiple countries involved in the process. It's like a snake which has wound itself around the world. In 30 years it's taken to build these supply chains. And to break them up, to disintegrate them is proving a huge challenge, even for the US. That is why you're seeing this back and forth between tariffs. Sometimes they go up, sometimes they come down, sometimes they're levelized, and no one really knows what is happening. That's creating extreme uncertainty in global markets. So it is not just US and China which are getting affected. US and China are definitely getting affected, but the rest of the world is also getting affected. Investors are getting affected by this commotion. The second aspect is what you mentioned is about the strategic rivalry. That is an aspect of technology denial. That this, the powerful hegemon would try to deny certain technologies, whether IPR has been used in many cases, instruments like non-proliferation in the case of nuclear energy have been used in many cases, to deny technology to certain others. So there's a strategic aspect to the technology denial. So as an instrument of state power, there is one aspect of technology denial. The other aspect, which is more complicated, is the economic aspect, where it is proving rather difficult to break up these global supply chains. And you keep on saying earlier, if you listen to the interview of Secretary Besant just yesterday, when he spoke yesterday, he now says, no, there's no question of decoupling. US and China cannot really decouple. So you realize that there is an economic integration.
Remember that, you're right about that, that's right.
So there is an economic integration between the various countries in this process, and building resilience in the supply chain is one part of it. That you do not get tied down to one supplier. Keep them global, so then you get back to globalization. You don't go away from it. However, that globalization changes shape. The second is about the strategic denial aspect of certain technologies. Yes, there is going to be stiff competition. And both countries are going to be very guarded about what they're developing, how they're developing. The game is open. Let us see where it moves.
When our guest there, Zhang Yuan, mentions decoupling, I couldn't help but think about the Belt and Road Initiative that China has been obviously the founder of and has initiated that, and it's been years now, and it partners with countries along the route as it progresses in order to make sure that it is there as a support mechanism for the development of the countries. And it makes me think of why isn't that approach taken not just by the US but other countries as well, perhaps, because I see China as wanting the world to benefit, and how a way can assist them doing it, then it is a partner for them. Can you tell us how that perhaps is, in a sense, the outcome of reshaping the world, because countries then progress because of the Belt and Road Initiative?
It's not so-called reshaping the world. We are expecting more fair justice globalization, to more fair liberalism, and we think all the countries have the opportunity to pursue their prosperities, and the people have their rights to ask their government to do a better good governance. And all the government should be more moderate, more reach the expectation from the international community. And as Chinese scholars, I'm so glad to see our country and other, especially some global south countries, we have strategic talking, and we can jointly cooperate with strategies, and we help those countries, and they also themselves do more higher autonomy on technology training, on technology development. And this kind of help, this kind of development brings the region, brings the world more developed than it used to be, so it can benefit all countries and benefit all people.
Indeed. Well, taking a look at what many have concluded or have analyzed, that there seems to be this trend in terms of the thought or the approach that the world is shifting towards the east. It seems like that is where the economic prosperity is going to happen. Again, this is something I've researched that I've found out, and also the global south. So my question to you is, and this involves India, this involves China, Iran, why do you think that that is the case, that it seems like people are concluding that that's where the trend is?
The trend is a simple growth trajectories. Countries growing, if you start to look at the rate of growth in economies, where is the growth coming from? The growth is coming from countries in the east. 4%, 5%, 6%, 7%, 8%, 9%, 10%. The growth has been there. Whereas the developed countries have been growing at a much slower pace. Many of them have demographic challenges. Whereas all the demographic concentration, the growth is happening in, earlier it was China, now it's India. India is slowing down, and the next frontier then is this part of the world, West Asia, Africa. These are the countries who are becoming the dynamos of the global economy moving forward. Now that has implications for both buyers and sellers. Sellers have goods to sell. Where do they sell them? And therefore China's, yes, Belt and Road Initiative is one part of that process. How do you diversify markets? How do you move into different markets? And how do you compete in markets? That is the economic aspect of competition which is taking shape. The problem is building infrastructure, which China has been doing in many of these countries, is a complicated process. There are no returns in the short run to it. Infrastructure projects pay off over a long time. So someone is left handling a debt burden. Who handles that debt burden? Now, many of these countries where these projects come through, this is a long story, are then saddled with high mountains of debt, which they find difficult. They say, oh, have we allowed another country to gain too much leverage over us? Is this what is happening? So there is even within that entire nexus of building connectivity projects, there are issues. Sure. Because infrastructure is a problematic project. Infrastructure does not pay quick returns.
Indeed. It was going to be my last question, but because you raised that point, I need for you to say something about that, because that has been an unfortunate attribution to China when it has given out the loans that it has. But when you interview the respective either entrepreneurs or any companies that are involved with the loans that China has given out, it sees improvements in there. There may be debt repayment issues in terms of time. Of course, you can feel, I don't know why I'm saying it. You tell us how you view this, the whole thing. When it comes to China and the debt, the loans it has given out and the repayments by the countries, and why some have described that as being debt slaves, so to speak, to China because of the debt.
I think it's a tough question for all Chinese people to answer, but I don't think that low so-called threats or crisis exist in our cooperation with all the developing countries, because we will treat the project case by case and based on the capability of that country that they can accept and they can receive. And we wanted to overload their abundance. And I think our help and our support is very trustful, and we are reliable big powers, not like what happened we also can see in the past several months what the new administration in the US have done. He ruined his friendship with his traditional alliance, but China will not betray his friends, and will not betray his strategic partners. Sorry,
No,
probably it's not my English.
No, that's okay. No problem. We're going to unfortunately have to end it there, but thank you very much. We do appreciate your presence and your contribution. ZHANG Yuan, professor at the Shanghai International Studies University, thank you so much. And Sunjoy Joshi, thank you for your input. Chairman of the Observer Research Foundation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.